It is currently 10 a.m., Sunday, September 4th, 2022. And I just wanted to make a quick response video to another video that I saw from Omar Gonzalez. I'll try and put it up here. Well, that's the problem with center weighted average. Is it center weighted average? No, I think it's actually center metering. That's what I'm using for exposure. Let me lock that exposure. So in that video, Omar Gonzalez talks about how, um, he takes these landscape photos that he likes, right? He thinks he did a great job, and the guy's a professional photographer. So I mean, I look at his photos, I'm like, yeah, those are some bangers. But then he goes on to say that like when he sees photos from actual professional landscape photographers, because he's an event photographer, but when he sees work from actual professional landscape photographers, he feels like his work is so much lower quality in comparison to those other people's works, and it almost makes him like not want to do it, right? It's kind of a demotivator, so to speak. And yeah, I totally feel him, man, because yeah, I've been through the same thing. I've been to many beautiful places like Banff and Jasper and Grand Canyon, and I go to all these like amazing beautiful places, um, having seen photographs of those places, and then I try and take pictures, and it never ends up looking the same. And it's a matter of expectation. All of us take pictures, right? So we have this sort of preconceived notion that to take a picture, you just have to go there, point a camera, and then press a shutter button. But in reality, like to get the kind of photos that you know professional landscape photographers get, there's so much work involved in it. But the vast majority of people don't realize that. And I think it's very similar to astrophotography, right? I think a lot of people think, well, for astrophotography, you just point your camera at the sky, take a picture of the Milky Way, and that's it. But in reality, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So for specifically for astrophotography, you have to a pick the right time of year, so that the Milky Way is in the proper location. You have to be there at a certain time so that the Milky Way is actually, you know, above the horizon, and you also want it to be, not too high up up along the horizon. You want it a little bit lower. You want to pick a location where it's exceptionally dark so that you can actually see the Milky Way, so away from any light pollution. And you have to pick a location where there's some interesting foreground, right? That's the big thing that people don't realize. Like, it's if you just want a picture of the Milky Way, like that's actually kind of boring, and you can find a million pictures of the Milky Way on the internet. Um, but what makes it interesting is to have it as a backdrop to something interesting in the foreground. So you have to find a place that's not only in a dark sky environment, but also interesting as a foreground, right? So not just like a bunch of trees. And then, on top of that, you need the weather to cooperate, right? You need not just dark skies, but you need for there to not be clouds. You need there to not be haze. Um, yeah, I mentioned this a little bit, but I didn't specifically say this. But like, you have to also make sure like the the moon isn't full, right? So you have to time it so that it's a new moon. So anyway, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's so much that goes into making a Milky Way photograph that, like, it took me, I want to say, about a year or a year and a half before I actually managed to do it. Now, I'm not a full-time photographer. Just a hobbyist, right? I have a job, and so that in many ways limits the amount of time I can spend on, getting a Milky Way photo. Um, but yeah, that's the thing. It's just that it's very difficult. And why am I saying all this? Well, it is actually very similar for landscape photography, because you can go to the same place as, professional photographer, but the thing is, the picture that you take may not be during the optimal conditions, right? Like, you may be there when it's high noon, where the lighting is not very flattering. And so, you have to be there at certain times of the day, typically, golden hour, so very early or very late. You probably also need to be there at a certain time of year too. And maybe the foliage, right? You want to capture foliage at a certain time of year. Or you want to catch certain weather patterns. You don't want it covered in snow. Maybe you do want it covered in snow. And then you also need for the sky conditions to be perfect as well. So yeah, you don't want it to just be like completely cloud covered. You also don't want it to be completely, bright blue sky and just it be so bright that you can't see the landscape, right? So there's all these things you have to bear in mind. And in fact, I'm finally getting to the point that I'm trying to make in this video. There's actually software out there that allows you to replace the sky for your landscape photos, right? It's something that, back in the day, landscape photographers might spend, days, weeks, months at a location waiting for that perfect photo. But nowadays, because of the sophistication of technology, the fact that we have AI, now they allow you to just replace the sky, so as to create that kind of optimal condition for your photos, right? So I mean that's a big thing, right? Is sky is very important for landscape photography, just like sky is very important for astrophotography. And it's such a difficult thing to get right that there's literally software out there that will artificially replace your sky. So yeah. Anyway, landscape photography is very difficult in that respect. And then beyond that, like, landscape photography can also be very difficult to get from a logistics perspective too. Like, some landscapes, like, you may have to trek for hours, to get to that location, to get that great shot. And it may be a trail that does not exist, right? And so it can be incredibly dangerous and difficult for you to get there. You may literally need to climb a mountain to get the landscape photo that you're looking for. So for all these reasons, landscape photography can be very difficult. It oftentimes involves getting to a place that is inaccessible to the average person, because we may not have the gear, we may not have the time, we may not have the physical fitness level to be able to make it to that location. And then on top of all of that, it may require permits, right? Some places, especially famous locations and famous national parks, those areas are crawling with tourists. And so a professional landscape photographer may be able to acquire permits to close down certain portions of the park for photos to be taken, right? And it's not necessarily something that the average person will be able to acquire, even if they're willing to pay for it. Like I think about Arches National Park, I think is what it's called, and you got that very famous arch stone formation. That place is crawling with tourists all the time. I'm sure. I've never been, but I'm sure it's crawling with tourists, right? But like if you look at professional marketing material for that park, showing that formation, that rock formation, it's not crawling with tourists. Why? Because probably at some point the park said we want a nice professional photo of this stone archway, and we're going to hire a professional landscape photographer to take this picture, and we are going to block off this area from tourists during this period of time so that the professional photographer can get the great pictures that we need for our marketing material. Like anyway, those are things that like an average photographer would not be able to do, right? So why are we talking about all of this? Well, where did Omar Gonzalez go with all of this? Well, he eventually said that like even though these great landscape shots kind of demotivate you to some degree, he's also come to realize that he doesn't necessarily have to strive for those kind of photos to enjoy the process, and I think that's very important. Yeah, so just realize that if you're a hobbyist photographer like me and like him and like most other people, with respect to landscape photography, of course, like I said, Omar is a professional photographer, but he's a professional event photographer. Even if you're just a hobbyist, you can still do it. Do it because you enjoy the process. Don't do it necessarily because you're expecting to create the greatest photo ever that you're going to sell and make a lot of money, that you're going to go viral for. That's not you're going to be disappointed, I think, if that's what you're going for. Try your best, and just enjoy the process. You may not be able to get that wonderful photo with zero tourists crawling all over the place, right? But you can still go during, the optimal time, right? And plan to be there for not just one day, but plan to be there for like a whole week. That way you can get multiple photos during different sort of weather conditions. You can do all those other things, right? And you may not be able to get the perfect shot, but you may be able to get something that's still, a banger. It's kind of about learning and enjoying the process and gaining an appreciation for what like a true professional photographer has to do. I'm actually going to draw a little parallel here that I think is a little bit silly, but I think kind of illustrates the point. I'm not much of a gamer nowadays, but once upon a time, I was. I like playing video games, right? And I do have an ongoing appreciation for video games, right? And so lately I've been watching some top level Mortal Kombat 11 players play, and I watch it. I don't really know what's going on, but I kind of appreciate that how difficult it is to do what they do. And then I thought, well, for me to actually understand what's going on, I probably should give it a try. And MK11 was on a pretty steep discount on Switch, so I bought it and I gave it a try. And after a day, it became clear to me that I'm not ever going to master this game. And in fact, my sort of motivation to continue playing has rapidly disappeared. But having bought the game and having spent a little bit of time with it, I've kind of gained an appreciation of how the game works. And so now other videos that I watch of top level players playing MK11 I kind of like get it. I kind of see, oh, like this is what they're doing, and and I know kind of how difficult it is to do what they're doing. Um, you know, so that in a way that's kind of the same, right? Like with landscape photography, go and try it. See for yourself how difficult it is to get the kind of shots that they do, and then that way, when you do see an absolutely gorgeous professional landscape photo, you will have that appreciation because currently in this modern culture, with Google Images, and Instagram and stuff like that, we're all too used to just rapidly scrolling through photos, and they could be very, very amazing photo that took a lot of work, but like we don't really appreciate what it takes to create them. So yeah, give it a try, and then you may actually find that you will enjoy those photos more. All right, I've gone on for long enough. I'm going to end it here. See you in the next one.